Are there more dogs or cats? Owners of the most popular pets probably wouldn't agree on which one is better. But if we ask which one there are more of in the world, the winner is much clearer. So, is it the cat or the dog? Of course, we'll never know the exact numbers. But estimates do exist, and they agree that there are significantly more dogs in the world. When counting both household pets and strays, but not wild species, it comes out to about 900 million dogs and about 600 million cats. Most of them are in the USA, around 60 million cats and up to 88 million dogs. Dogs also win in the number of breeds, with about 200, while there are only around 70 recognized cat breeds. The reason is logical. The dog was domesticated much earlier than the cat, possibly already 100,000 years ago, and over time, people bred different types for specific purposes, for hunting, guarding, or herding. Cats became human companions only 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, so they don't have such a wide variety of roles. Why are women colder than men? Men sweat and open the windows wide open, while women put on an extra sweater. Of course, there are exceptions, but in most cases, women are actually colder than men at the same temperature. Why? Scientists have been puzzling over this mystery for quite some time. And it seems that there are a number of possible reasons. A woman who weighs the same as a man generally has less muscle. This means fewer heat-producing workers. She also has more fat under her skin, so the bloodstream has less chance of warming the cooled surface of her body. The female hormones estrogen and progesterone also play a role. They cause blood vessels to constrict, which leads to less blood flow to the outer parts of the body. As a result, women have colder extremities, noses, or ears. Why? The reason, of course, is to try to save as much heat as possible for important internal organs, especially during ovulation, when everything is preparing for a potential conception. This applies not only to humans, but also to many animal species. What color do we see at night? When it gets dark and we turn off all the lights, the entire colorful world disappears from our sight. What color is it now? It's not black. The strange nothingness before our eyes was first named in the 19th century by the German physicist Gustav Theodor Fechner. He disagreed with the prevailing belief that night was black, and in German he called this color Eigengrau, inner or inner gray, or also Eigenlicht, inner light. According to him, it is the color we see when we close our eyes. Even in the absence of light rays, a certain noise appears on the retina and we perceive contrasts. Eigengrau is therefore lighter than black objects. That is why we can see their outlines even in the dark, and it is also lighter than the night sky. The impression of blackness here is supported by the contrast with the stars. How much salt is in the oceans? We can easily tell the difference between seawater and river water. Of course, because the sea is salty. But have you ever wondered how much salt is actually in there? If we collected it all and dried it out, would it cover the whole planet? Ironically, most of the salt was brought into the seas by rivers. Rainwater washed it from rocks on land into them. A smaller part comes from hydrothermal springs or volcanoes on the ocean floor. Each sea has a slightly different salinity, but the average is about 35 per meal, meaning there are 35 grams of salt in 1 kilogram of water. Which is quite a lot. It's estimated that if all the salt in the ocean were removed and evenly spread over the Earth's surface, it would not only easily cover the entire planet but would form a layer about 166 meters thick. That means it would reach the windows of the 50th floor of tall buildings. Does milk really sour during a thunderstorm? Maybe it has never happened to you, but people have been saying it for ages. So how much truth is there to the idea that milk doesn't like thunderstorms? Soured milk can be used to make things like curd cheese, which is why housewives in the past used to leave milk uncovered on the windowsill before a storm. And most of the time, it actually worked. Summer thunderstorms occur when it's hot and the air is very humid. And such air contains more bacteria than dry air. Once these bacteria reach the lactic acid, they start a clear process with the milk. Electromagnetic discharges and changes in air pressure are also believed to speed up the growth of yeast, and milk should sour faster, even in the fridge. On the other hand, pasteurization slows the process down a bit. When I drink upside down, does the water flow into my stomach? Everything in the world, including all liquids, is of course attracted to the Earth's surface. So if you decided to have coffee while standing on your head, wouldn't it flow up into your brain? Don't worry, the human body is so cleverly designed that it can even outsmart the force of gravity. When we eat or drink something, the movement of a bite or a sip into the stomach is controlled by a series of reflexes triggered by the brain. And at that moment, it doesn't matter at all what position we're in. The only important thing is maximum safety. At the moment of swallowing, only one path opens, the pharynx, in which the muscles begin to contract strongly, and the food or drink travels in the correct direction. If it didn't work this way, astronauts moving in microgravity wouldn't be able to eat either. But being able to drink upside down also comes in handy for other things, such as when you need to get rid of hiccups. Do fish ever sleep? Swimming all day would exhaust anyone. Does that also apply to fish? Do they ever need to rest, or even take a nap? And can they even fall asleep? Laying their head somewhere on the bottom and taking a few hours nap is, of course, not typical for fish. After all, they can't even close their eyes because they lack eyelids. Even so, they usually have a time during which they are a bit more at rest. The biggest sleepers are probably tropical parrotfish, which, as an evening ritual, release a sort of jelly-like substance. This forms a protective layer around the fish so that nothing disturbs it while it sleeps. But some fish hardly rest at all, like tuna, for example, which must keep swimming constantly so that air is pushed through their gills. Who invented the ridges on coins? Today, coins have different edges mainly so we can easily tell them apart. But in the past, the purpose of ridges and grooves was different. So when did coins even start to have them? The brilliant scientist Isaac Newton truly didn't waste a second. It wasn't enough for him to describe the principle of universal gravitation and the basic laws of motion after the supposed fall of an apple on his head. When he worked as the master of the English mint, one well-known fact kept him awake. Some silver coins were smaller than their proper weight should have been. In the days when money was made from real precious metals, thieves would simply shave small pieces off the edges, and then pass the slightly smaller coin along. But Newton decided not to let this go on. In 1696, he ordered all coins to be withdrawn and had ridges added to their edges. If anyone removed a piece from such a coin, it would, of course, be immediately obvious. Could a bird fly into space? A whole range of animals have already been sent into space for research purposes. Dogs, cats, monkeys, mice, turtles, worms, and cockroaches. Birds are probably the only ones missing from the list. Why aren't they suitable astronauts? Releasing a bird to fly to the sun, for example, would of course be impossible. And let's set aside the fact that it would suffocate without a spacesuit, and with a spacesuit, it couldn't flap its wings. It's precisely air that enables birds to fly. Thanks to the shape of their wings, the air moves faster above them than below, creating the necessary pressure difference. That's why most birds don't fly higher than 5 kilometers, while space begins 100 kilometers above the planet. Inside a space station, where there is artificial atmosphere, a bird might be able to fly, or rather glide through the space, but hygiene would then become an issue. Droppings would fly everywhere. And last but not least, in zero gravity, it wouldn't be able to eat. In humans, a series of contractions moves food from the esophagus to the stomach. But a bird has no such mechanism and needs gravity in order to swallow. Why is Australia a continent and not an island? There is only one country on the planet that occupies an entire continent. That's Australia. But why isn't it considered an island when it's so small compared to other continents? On a map, Australia looks almost smaller than Greenland, the world's largest island. However, this flat representation is very misleading. In fact, Greenland, with its 7.7 million square kilometer, would fit inside Australia about 3.5 times. But the difference is not just in size. Australia lies on its own tectonic plate, while Greenland does not. It shares it with North America. And they also have a separate history and culture. While Aboriginal Australians are native to Australia, the Greenland Inuit live throughout the Arctic, including parts of Canada, the United States, and Russia. In addition, Australia is home to many species of plants and animals that are found nowhere else in the world. So, despite its somewhat smaller size, it fully meets the definition of a continent.